the press. There was no doubt about it. And he had scrutinized the amending bill himself before approving its introduction in the Parliament. In the Parliament, sir, it didn't go through smoothly at all. The voices which spoke about it, and I will also refer some of the observations made by eminent members, vehemently who opposed it. Sri Shyama Prasad Mukherjee said, you can pass a law, I'm quoting, sir, you can pass a law and say that the entire task of framing, interpreting, and working the Constitution will be left in the hands of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, assisted by such people whom he may desire to consult. I would think it was a snide remark, saying, oh, you do it all yourself with the people who you choose to have and not with the approval of the Parliament. That was the extent to which Pandit Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was upset about this amendment. Sir, he also said, you're treating this Constitution as a scrap of paper. You have declared preamble of your Constitution that you have done something unheard of in history, that within so short a period of attainment of freedom, you have trusted the people of this country to draft a Constitution. You have given a charter of rights to them. Now, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee says, now you come forward and stab them in the back. You're not working for the benefit of the present generation, but for party ends. But for party ends, unquote. Sir Sri Kameshwar Singh, a member of the Constituent Assembly, also had a lot of comments to pass, and he said, I quote, this Parliament, again, is a provisional one, and it cannot be said to be reflecting the will of the people in the way the Constitution wants Parliament to reflect it. For a government or a Parliament of this kind, it is highly improper to make such fundamental changes in the Constitution without making any reference to public opinion, and that too at the fag end of the strenuous parliamentary session and almost on the eve of a general election, unquote. So scathing remarks were made, and despite these remarks, Prime Minister Nehru went ahead with the amendment. Kameshwar Singh again goes about to say, do they not show, I quote, do they not show utter disregard for the Constitution when they attempt to amend it simply because some of the laws have been criticized and found invalid by the judiciary? Today we hear comments from the Indian National Congress about how the current government is questioning the judiciary. This comment coming from a member of the Constituent Assembly itself says, prior to the First Amendment to the Constitution, which curtailed freedom of expression. The Prime Minister, he furthers, the Prime Minister, I'm constrained to say, that is Sri Kameshwar Singh, the Prime Minister, I'm constrained to say, is creating a bad precedent by sowing the seed of executive despotism, and playing with the supremacy of the Constitution for party advantages, unquote. So there was no doubt this amendment was more raised for the sake of the party or the Prime Minister and the government's image, rather than assuring what the Constituent Assembly had suggested as the Constitution which was going to be adopted. An amendment bill was passed, the Press Objectionable Matter Act, on 23rd October 1951. We know, therefore, the amendment, the intent, the four tests that I was talking about: social impact and intent, economic impact and intent, the constitutional spirit, and the process adopted for the amendment, all of which are questionable, but nevertheless that amendment was undertaken, and we heard how that amendment till today affects the freedom of speech of this country. Now, it is not as if this 1951 amendment happened all in a sudden. Prior to the amendment and post the amendment, we've had recorded action taken by those government that day, that particular government, in curtailing the freedom of speech. So the act was just waiting to happen, because even before it they started it, and even after that they were continuing. What are the examples, sir? Majroor Sultanpuri and Balraj Sahani were both jailed in 1949 itself. For what mistakes, sir? During one of the meetings organized for the mill workers in 1949, Majroor Sultanpuri recited a poem that was written against Jawaharlal Nehru, and therefore he had to go to the jail. Sir, he refused to render an apology for the same and was jailed therefore in 1949 along with Balraj Sahni, eminent actor of those days. So that is the level of tolerance, and today we hold our constitution in our hand, go about it and say freedom of speech. There is sense of fear in the country. Majroor Sultanpuri didn't feel it, Balraj Sahni didn't feel it, but the history repeats when it comes to the Congress party. Sir, Congress's record of curtailing freedom of speech didn't confine it with these two people. Nehru, a political biography which was written by Michael Edwards, in 1975 was banned. They banned also a film called Kissa Kursi Ka in 1975, which was directed by Amritlal Nahata, just because it questioned Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and her son, and also the Information Broadcasting Minister then. They banned also John Dalby's book, Himalayan Blunder, because it spoke about some huge crushing military disaster which happened in 1962, the China War. The details shouldn't come out, and therefore they banned that book as well. So this, and a bit later, 1988, Salman Rushdie's book, Satanic Verses, was also banned. So the spree of curtailing the freedom of expression, the spree of containing freedom of press has happened before 49, and so during 49 and 50, 51 the act comes, and subsequently also it continues. So it's nothing new. So the amendment, again, a second issue that I'd like to draw your attention to. I said I'm putting it through 4 tests. A 9th schedule was brought into through the first Constitutional Amendment Act. The 9th schedule, sir, is an interesting innovation brought for bypassing judicial review. Why was it brought in? I'm questioning the intent, sir, the constitutional spirit which is not being respected, and the process which is adopted are part of the test I want every amendment to be put to, so that you know whether it is done with the national interest, or is it done with some economic public good, or if it is brought in because there is a social large good which is required to be obtained. No, the 9th schedule was brought in only because they wanted to bypass judicial scrutiny. Any act incorporated in the 9th schedule became fully protected against any challenge in any court of law under any fundamental right. So even the act declared invalid. Even worse, today about everything retrospective we talk, saying no, nothing can happen in retrospect, it has to be futuristic. So prospective is what? Whether it is taxation, whether it is benefits, whether it is any clarificatory note. But here we go, the act declared invalid by a court becomes valid retrospectively after being incorporated into the 9th schedule. That's the extent to which they went, so that they can bypass judicial scrutiny. And Congress speaks about protecting rights and also on judicial independence, sir. It is shocking. Yes, we'll come. I'll come.
Please,
sir.
Jairamji, take your place.
The third point, sir.
Please. अच्छी डिबेट चल रही है, सुनिए, आपका जब समय आएगा बोलिएगा, प्लीज।
SC, ST, OBC, come on, people who sat over Kelkar. Sir, the next instance which I would like to put through is amendment being enacted to, again, the judiciary was held in contempt. they had to be committed judiciary or else they were not respected at all. Another example, sir. Constitutional amendment was brought in to nullify a judgment that arose in the case of Mrs. Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan, wherein the order of the Allahabad High Court setting aside the election of Indira Gandhi was challenged. So, during the pendency of this case in the Supreme Court, the Congress party enacted the 39th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1975. Again, earlier there is a Supreme Court and many other high courts have given clearance, but even then will curb freedom of speech. 1951, the First Amendment. Here, a case is pending. Mrs. Indira Gandhi's case is being heard in the court, Allahabad High Court. But no, we are in a hurry. What if the court comes against me? So I come up with an amendment, 39th Constitutional Amendment Act, 1975. Again, valid retrospectively, which added Article 392A to the Constitution. What did it say? It said elections to the President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Lok Sabha Speaker cannot be challenged in any court in the country, and it can be done only before a parliamentary committee. Imagine the extent to which, for a person to save her chair, इसीलिए किस्सा कुर्सी का was banned. कुर्सी बचाने के लिए कोर्ट का वर्डिक्ट आने से पहले ही हम जाकर के अमेंडमेंट करेंगे पार्लियामेंट में. यही है इनके इतने दूर तक जाने वाले विषय. कानून को दुरुपयोग करना, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट करवाना देश के हित में नहीं है. प्रोसेस सही नहीं होता, इससे आर्थिक सुधार कुछ होने वाले नहीं है या सामाजिक सुधार भी कुछ होने वाले नहीं है. व्यक्तिगत और परिवारवाद के लिए ही अमेंडमेंट हुआ है. सर, मैं दूसरी और एक उदाहरण देना चाहती हूं. दूसरी एक और उदाहरण देना चाहती हूं जिससे सामाजिक